Hey there, Sunshine. It's Michelle here, and I'm inviting you to wake up and live. And it's kind of one of those days where it kind of gets away from you, and I'm looking at the clock going, oh my gosh, it's 8:30 and I have not done my video. So here I am on my phone because it was the easiest. I have no clue where to look when I'm doing my phone. Whew. So today we're going to talk about the familiar zone, and we're going to talk about how that kind of creates a mindset for us. So some people call the familiar zone, some people call the familiar zone the comfort zone. But if you know anything, you know that it's not comfortable. It's just familiar. We know what's going to happen there. Even if we don't like the results, we know what's going to happen there. There's a level of certainty that comes there. And that's the concept we're talking about this week is certain. And how if we have a level of certainty, we may choose to stick with it even if it's not for our highest and best good, because we know what's going to happen and we crave a level of certainty. So this is my little drawing. You are the butterfly in the middle. Okay, and the center, the area around that goes out to the ring, is the familiar zone, also known as the comfort zone, but we all know it's not actually comfortable. So in that familiar zone, those are the things that you're experiencing right now. And if you notice, I have another circle on the outside. That is the death zone. Now here's the thing. Our subconscious is designed to keep us safe. That is its number one job, to keep us safe. It keeps us living. It makes sure that we're doing our breathing like we're supposed to. It's making our heart beat. All of those unconscious things that keep our body going are done by our subconscious brain. But also the things to tell us what to be afraid of. Now, going out and crossing a busy highway is really kind of dumb. Walking out in front of a car, oncoming traffic, is really dumb because the chances of death are really high. But there are people who are so afraid of life that they can't even go outside of their door. They have, what is it called, agoraphobia or something like that. And it's because they're running fear so high that they believe that they're going to die just by stepping outside of their door. That's a false boundary. So what happens, if I can do this with not enough hands. Okay, so you have yourself and you have this familiar zone, and somebody with agoraphobia or whatever, their familiar zone is going to be like right around them, like they can't even move because they could die. Because this boundary right here, this is the boundary that we think we're going to die. If we cross that, we think we're going to die. And then you have, so this is the line where we think we're going to die. This is the line where we actually would die. So jumping out of a parachute or jumping out of an airplane, we could be super terrified of it because we have all these things like what happens if the parachute doesn't open, and like we have all these kind of fears that we might die. And so sometimes there is a risk of death, but the risk of death compared to the risk of life is very minuscule. It's like driving in a car. We drive in cars all the time, and the risk of death is actually pretty high compared to some other things. So we think we're going to die, but it's really just a small chance, and it's no different than anything else you do in life. This, on the other hand, this is the actual, like, you are going to die if you do it. So if you jump out of a plane without a parachute and you just think, I'm just going to jump and hope I make it, you're going to die. That's pretty obvious. You're going to die. So that's kind of the difference. Is the one line, the one boundary is where you think you're going to die, and the other boundary, the other line, is where you're going to die. And then you have this area in between, and that's where things feel scary. They feel really scary to us. They're outside of what's familiar to us, and that's where magic happens. When we when we can push ourselves outside of the boundaries of what is familiar to us and ask ourselves, am I really going to die? Is this something that I'm for sure going to die, or is it there's like a minuscule chance? And sometimes it's as silly as, it seems silly, but fear is very valid. It's something we experience. So to say silly is kind of not being very kind, not acknowledging a valid fear. If you have a fear. They aren't always logical, and that's the wonderful thing about emotions, is they are very rarely, okay, never logical. Um, but you can ask yourself some questions. So I was going to say something that's kind of silly. Being afraid to talk to somebody new. What are the chances that you're actually going to die if you talk to that person? Well, you have like this little itty bitty less than a percent chance that that person could be a serial killer and you could die from that, but that's really not likely to happen and kind of silly. But that's what happens when we get to that place, when we get to our like the comfort zone level, when we get to that boundary outside of our familiar zone. That's what starts happening. Our brain starts going, well, if this happens, then this will happen, and then this will happen, and then I'll die, and everything leads to death or some equivalent. Because for me, a lot of times it doesn't live to actually go to death. For some reason, it goes to I'll disappear. I think that has something to do with the having vanishing twin syndrome, where my in utero, my twin vanished. Or, yeah, okay. So in utero, my twin vanished. And I think that that may be part of it, is to me, like, death means disappearing. So for me, it doesn't go to death as much as it goes to disappearing. But you're always going to lead, it's always going to go to something like that. So it's, if I do this, then this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen. And sometimes that mindset actually is messing with us, even in manifesting, in everything we're doing. It's not letting us shine our souls big, bright, live, and beautiful. It's keeping us small. It's trying to protect us, keeping us in this familiar zone. And so how do you step out of it? Well, you look at the things that you're afraid of and you ask yourself some questions like, am I really going to die? What are the chances? You take that, do that what if, do a journaling exercise where you take it out until you get to that dying place. And, ask yourself, if this happens, what, then what, and then what, and then what, until you get to that place where it's death. And then you're like, well, that's kind of silly because it's not going to happen. And a lot of times, not always, a lot of times that will kick you out of it, and then you'll be able to do it anyway. That's one way to address these fears so that you can step out. Now, here's the other thing, doing small things. You do one thing that's a little bit of a stretch outside of your comfort zone or your familiar zone. You do that one thing to stretch you outside of there. And guess what? You just expanded your familiar zone a little bit. Because now your subconscious goes, hey, I did that and I didn't die. An example of this is doing some things with video. There was a time when getting on a video was impossible. It was super scary. I encouraged myself to do a few. I didn't die. I didn't love it. Then Facebook Live started coming out, and I had a challenge to do one. And I was very raw and very vulnerable, like the most raw and vulnerable a person can be on a video. Just sobbing and talking about something that was very, very hard. And it was that thing that it's like, oh, I didn't die. Text message. Sorry about that. My mom's sending pictures. So sending out this, and I forgot to, I don't know, can I turn off my sound while I'm on? Thing. There. That way if more come. Sorry about that. So stepping out of, when I did something that, like, because it was more than just doing a video. It was doing like, oh, here, it was like a big step outside of my familiar zone. But ever since then, I have not had a problem being on videos. I can say some of the stupidest things, and I don't have a problem with it because I stretched my familiar zone boundary, and I know that I'm not gonna die. I can totally just let everything out for you guys, and I'm not going to die. I'm not going to disappear. I have people that will still love me. Maybe not everybody will love me, but people will still love me. Things like that. So I've stretched out my familiar zone and I made it bigger. We can do that with lots of things. So find something to help you stretch out enough. I don't have as much fear about publishing another book because I published a book last year. And I worked through that. And so now, like, okay, the actual publishing, it's not scary. Getting it read is a different story, but getting it out there no longer holds the fear. And so that's some of the things that you can do is practice stretching your familiar zone so it gets bigger. What's there's something else? Oh, trace it back to the first time you felt it. I love, 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 love when I have an emotion come up, a trigger about something or fear about something. When was the earliest I can remember it? And if I can't remember it, what ages come to mind or what circumstances come to mind? And it doesn't have to be real. And sometimes for people, it's premortal before they came to Earth. And that's okay too. Go back to the earliest you can think of or the earliest that comes up for you that you experienced that. And then one of my favorite things to do is once I've got the age, I kind of ask myself, okay, where is this trapped in, on, or around my body? So do I feel it in my body? And it kind of feels like a cloud, usually to me, some kind of a cloud or a heaviness. Where is it in my body? Is it in my body? Is it around my body? Is it on my body? And I find where I feel it. And then I ask myself where I got it from. Like, did I duplicate it from my mom? Did I duplicate it from my dad? Where did it come from? Like, just to duplicate it. Where did I duplicate it? Because it's somehow I experienced it and then I copied it into my own energy and took it on as mine. And then when I got know a little bit of information about it, then I bring in light. I bring in God's light, God's love, His life. And I imagine this light coming down from heaven and just blasting this darkness in my energy. A lot of times I also imagine that the earth is sending up energy and that the universe is sending in energy. So there is light coming from all directions and it just dissipates this. And the amazing thing about doing this kind of a technique is it dissipates the very beginning one, the earliest you can find. And I ask that the light go to the very first imprint, even if I'm not imagining it. The very first imprint, the very first seed, if you will. Just like a seed of a seed of faith will grow, a seed of doubt will grow, a seed of fear will grow. And so I ask that the light be sent to that seed. And when that gets cleared up, everything that was like built on top of it disappears. So it's pretty awesome. So there's some things that you can think about and do to change your mindset so that you can get out of your comfort zone, so that you can stretch your what's familiar to you, and then that what's familiar becomes certain. You are certain that you will live, that it's not going to kill you to make videos, or it's not going to kill you to publish a book, or it's not going to kill you to get on the stage. Whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to stretch yourself and you're going to do some of these healing things, and you're going to find out that it's okay, that you have a certainty that you are still going to live, because you've now stretched your familiar zone. And that is one of the human needs that we have, is that surety, which can also be called surety, certainty, security, familiarity, things that we know and understand. and you can begin to shift what is familiar to you to, instead of being in the mindset of everything being scary or negative or lack, you can shift it so that now what's familiar to you is joy and positive thoughts and being excited about trying new things and stretching your familiar zone. You can get to a point where it feels comfortable to experience change. So that's what I have to share with you today. I hope that you take a chance to try it, to try something, to step out and to stretch your, change what's familiar for you. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll have my computer back in place tomorrow so that I can do a much nicer video. Remember to let your soul shine big, bright, light, and beautiful. Be the incredible, wonderful, magnificent, awesome you that you were created to be. And I will see you guys tomorrow.